The film opens on Christmas Eve. A little girl named Juliet, Luciana Vandette, goes to her mom Jennifer, Karis Y. Fox, because she thinks she hears Santa Claus on the roof. Jennifer brings Juliet back to her room and reassures her that there is nothing to be scared of. Later, Juliet hears noises again and goes downstairs to see what looks like Santa putting presents down by the tree. Unfortunately, this is Art the Clown, David Howard Thornton, and Juliet goes running when she sees him pull an axe out of his bag. Juliet hides as she watches Art go into her brother Timmy's, Kellen Raffaello, room and hears the sound of Art hacking him to pieces. Art then goes into their parents' room and starts plunging the axe into their father Mark, Alex Ross. Jennifer wakes up in terror and runs to find her kids. She wails at the sight of Timmy's mutilated remains before Art proceeds to chop her up. Art then takes the cookies and milk that Juliet left for Santa before finding the girl hiding under the sink. 5 years earlier, right after the last movie, Officer Evans, Stephen Kofeld, Jr., comes across Art's decapitated body. The body comes back to life and rips Evans' head off to put on itself so it can go out in the streets on Halloween. At the asylum, the possessed Victoria, Samantha Scafidi, has given birth to Art's head, and the two have begun feeding on the poor nurse that discovered them. The guard, Burke, Chris Jericho, discovers the grisly scene, where Victoria briefly appears to regain control of herself to tell Burke that Art made her do this horrible thing, but the entity repossesses her. Art and Vicky then proceed to tear Burke's face apart before escaping the asylum. They make their way to an abandoned house, where Art sits on a rocking chair by the window, and Vicky takes a shard of broken mirror and slashes her wrists in a bathtub. In the present day, Sienna, Lauren Lavera, is being picked up at a psych ward by her uncle Greg, Bryce Johnson, to stay with him, her aunt Jess, Margaret and Florence, who is also her mother's sister, and their daughter Gabby, Antonella Rose, who is ecstatic to see Sienna because she views her like a big sister. While Sienna is still trying to recover from her trauma, she still sees visions of people like her friend Brooke, Kaylee Hyman, looking the way she did after Art killed her. Jonathan, Elliot Fulham, is in college and has to deal with his obnoxious roommate Cole, Mason McArtia. Cole's girlfriend Mia, Alexa Blair Robertson, is eager to meet Jonathan because she operates a true crime podcast and wants to know what it was like to meet someone who was so close to Art's carnage. Sienna later calls Jonathan to let him know she is out of the ward. 2 demolition workers come upon the abandoned house where Art and Vicky took refuge. The younger worker finds Art, still sitting and staring out the window while covered in cobwebs, while Vicky has been rotting away in the tub, submerged in her own filth. The older worker finds Vicky, who comes back to life and stabs him in the neck with the mirror shard. Art reawakens and attacks the younger worker, stabbing him until he peels the skin off his skull. Art then proceeds to gather some tools, including liquid nitrogen that he tests out on an unwitting rat. At home, Sienna tries to bond with her family but is still struggling, even with her medication. She spends time with Gabby but warns her against looking through her journal entries. Sienna also bonds with Jess, who misses her sister. Art later ends up at a bar, where he finds a man named Charlie, Daniel Roebuck, dressed as Santa. Art joins him, plus another patron, Smokey, Clint Howard, and the bartender Eddie, Bradley Stryker. While they are in high spirits at first, laughing and drinking, things take a turn when Art spits a drink in Charlie's face, and then pisses on his lap. Charlie gets angry and tries to fight Art before the mad clown starts rummaging through his sack. Eddie goes to confront him, and Art shoots him in the neck before blowing Smokey's brains out. He then ties Charlie to a chair while he begs for his life, and Art uses the liquid nitrogen to freeze his arm and leg before shattering them. Art then freezes Charlie's face, smashing it and ripping his beard off. Sienna joins Gabby at the mall but becomes startled when she hears the Clown Cafe song and then sees Art walking by, wearing a Santa mask but covered in blood and waving at Sienna to let her know it's him. She later goes to join Jonathan to eat and potentially reconnect, only for them to get interrupted by Cole and Mia. Cole acts like a dick as usual, but when Mia approaches Sienna about doing her podcast, Sienna snaps at her and loudly expresses anger over how people have sensationalized the horrific murders for their entertainment. Sienna and Jonathan later argue privately since she says she saw Art again, but Jonathan isn't convinced. He suggests they move on for good until Sienna brings up letters that he wrote to her regarding the little pale girl and how their father also seemingly saw visions of demons. A flashback shows him reacting funny when giving young Sienna a drawing he made. Sienna resolves to return to the Terrifier to retrieve the sword she used to previously defeat Art, hoping it can kill him and Vicky for good. Art puts on Charlie's Santa outfit and goes to the mall, where he fills in for the actual mall Santa. He gives several kids random gifts before security forces him out since he is creeping people out. A little boy then grabs a package and opens it, setting off a bomb that kills several parents and children. When Sienna returns home, she finds that Gabby had read through her journal despite her telling her not to. Gabby is apologetic, but Sienna denies all the art-related stuff that she wrote. However, Sienna starts to freak out when she sees a news report on the mall bombing and hears a witness describe Art's appearance. Greg calls Jonathan for help, and he heads out to pick the boy up. Art shows up at the college, where Cole and Mia are discussing getting Sienna or Jonathan on her podcast because she really wants to know what it was like to experience true evil, unaware that Art is mere feet away from them. The two go have sex in the shower, where Art follows them with a chainsaw. He smashes through the glass and cuts Cole up before slicing into Mia's body, leaving her alive long enough to look into his eyes like she wanted, and then he proceeds to cut her in half. Cole then takes the chainsaw up the ass before Art splits him in half starting from the groin. Art then proceeds to use his body to make an angel from all the blood on the floor. Sienna wakes up and goes downstairs, thinking she is overhearing Greg and Jess talking about getting rid of her. This turns out to be Vicky mimicking their voices, as she and Art are already in the house. They have already killed Greg, putting his severed head on top of the Christmas tree and crucifying his headless, disemboweled corpse. The villains tie Sienna and Jess up to prepare to torture them. In the middle of them is a skull that they claim is Gabby's, but Jess refuses to believe them. Jess tells Sienna to make Art and Vicky suffer before they stuff a tube down her throat and stick a live rat in there, using a blowtorch to force it down her throat before Vicky slits it open for the rat to fall out. Vicky then tells Sienna that the skull is not Gabby, with Art bringing the frightened girl out. He puts Jonathan's glasses on the skull, seemingly confirming they killed him, and causing Sienna to scream in anguish. The entity inside Vicky tries to possess Sienna, but she is too strong to let it happen, leading Vicky to think that it will work if they kill Gabby. Before the two can finish the girls off, Gabby asks if they can let Sienna open her gift first. Vicky lets it happen, but not before Art maims Sienna's hands to make it harder for her to open it. When she does open it, she pulls out the sword and stabs Art. Sienna frees herself and stabs Vicky before beheading her. While she tries to finish off Art, Vicky's blood melts through the floor and opens a portal to hell, with Gabby being pulled in. Sienna tries to use the sword to pull Gabby up, which cuts through Sienna's hands and ultimately isn't enough to save Gabby from falling in with the sword. The portal closes, and Art is nowhere to be found. Sienna is left alone and in agony, until the wounds on her hands magically heal. She then vows to do whatever it takes to rescue Gabby. Art boards a bus out of town. He sits near a woman, who looks frightened when he widens his eyes at her. As the bus driver asks her if she is okay, Art takes out his horn and gives his creepy smile before honking it.